الخارجية الأمريكي كولين باول مجلس الحكم الانتقالي العراقي إلى صياغة دستور جديد للبلاد خلال مهلة 6 أشهر. وقال باول في حديث لصحيفة نيويورك تايمز إنها مهلة صعبة للوفاء بالمطلوب، لكن هناك ضرورة لدفع المجلس إلى التحرك. السياسة في مصر هي موضوع المحور الثاني في العالم الليلة، فقد بدأ الحزب الوطني الحاكم في مصر أعمال مؤتمره الثامن اليوم، المؤتمر الذي وصف بأنه سينتهج سياسة مد الجسور مع المجتمع المصري وفعالياته المختلفة. من المنتظر أن يوصي بفتح حوار مع الأحزاب والقوى المصرية المؤثرة.
Thanks for being with us. I do want to stay with this reaction first because I think it's important to point out that over 9 hours after this blast in Baghdad, we have not heard from the US President, George W. Bush. And this in the aftermath of him really launching this PR blitz on Iraq. Is there a sense, or is there a feeling there that he is dodging the bad news and wanting to promote the good news?
Well, yes, indeed, there is this feeling, among the Arabs, and there is a feeling of really a distance from reality, if you like, because we hear something and we see something else. It's incredible how quickly the American administration is losing its credibility in the area, not only as far as Iraq is concerned, but I believe also as far as the other Middle East problem, which is basically the Palestinian problem. But today, people, have been shocked. It's another attack. Basically, civilians died, they're innocent people, and people are witnessing another deterioration in the, security situation. People are unhappy, people are, saying, there is no security, there is no rebuilding going on, and the feeling that the war is, the peace is being lost, is very prominent in the area.
Now, I do want to go back to this blast, and we do know from the authorities there, they're saying it is too early to tell who may have been behind the blast, but they do believe the Baghdad hotel was the target. Now, there is this perception that CIA operatives may very well be housed there. We're told that's not the case from US authorities, but is it just enough that it is a perception that they're there?
Well, absolutely, yes. I think anything American, but I think it's a failure, basically, on the intelligence part, also on the security part. But anything moving that is, American is a target in Iraq. It's very unfortunate because these American soldiers are there, to help and to try and to bring peace. But it's unfortunate that the policies that they are implementing are not seen to be doing that. So there is this misunderstanding. While when they first entered Iraq, people were hopeful that they have gotten rid of Saddam Hussein, and maybe the American soldiers and indeed the British soldiers and other soldiers there would leave Iraq very quickly and would, leave it in the hands of Iraqis. The problem is that not only they're not leaving, but they're not seen to be building a force with international consent. If the UN perhaps moves in with more internationalized force in Iraq, I think you will see a change in the situation. This attack today seems to be following a pattern. I think this is like the 5th of its kind, and people in the area think that more of the same will follow. It's very unfortunate.
Have you learned any additional information about this bombing at all?
Well, actually, no, but people are, pointing out to some forces who are extremely secretive, who are very well organized, and I dare say many people think it is Saddam and his forces, but we have no credible information to say either or. I mean, we really don't know.
You talked about people, really, they're tired of waiting for the US troops or the Coalition Provisional Authority to do something to reconstruct Iraq. But do you say that that is really a broadly held view now by Iraqis, or is it just a small group?
No, I think this is widely viewed. I mean, there are some positive signs, of course. It's not all so bad. But the general feeling is not a happy one. You hear reports that are incredible, like about women being kidnapped, being raped. This is very alien to an Arab Muslim society. You hear of children being killed and stuffed with explosives. I'm sorry to say that. You hear all sorts of amazing and ugly reports coming from inside Iraq, and not only in Baghdad but in other areas, but predominantly in Baghdad. The feeling is that there is some movement, but this movement is very slow indeed, is not enough. And also we have some very negative signs also coming, like what's happening with the Shia cleric Muqtada Sadr, who is, already today has declared, the construction of this, in government, which is alien to the authorities that been put in place by the Americans. Also, also the bringing back of the Muslim courts, if you like. All these reports are not helpful to make people feel at ease. Also, one would comes to mind that maybe there is some sort of civil war, even between Shias themselves or between other forces. There's also, I must say, unhappiness about the Americans bringing in Turkish troops. And I think all the officials in Baghdad and the people inside Baghdad, they were saying we would not like any forces coming from around the area, not only the Turks but anybody else. So in short, there's this feeling that what the Americans want, the American administration is doing, irrelevant of how the Iraqis are feeling, or indeed all the other Arabs or Muslims around the world are feeling. It's a feeling that the Americans are not listening.
All right, Baria Alamuddin, thank you for your perspective on this matter. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, in the West Bank, Palestinian officials are calling or coming to terms with a temporary solution to a crisis of
something urgent should be done about it in a number of areas, particularly in areas of education and freedoms.
Post 9/11 security considerations or security measures in the United States have contributed to lack of educational opportunity for Arabs and Muslims.
A critical examination of the Arab world. A United Nations report puts Arab nations under the microscope and finds more than enough room for reform. It raises plenty of questions, among them what's fueling Arab anger and radicalism. On this edition of Q&A, a critical look at the criticism. Hello everyone and welcome to Q&A. Now, when a United Nations commissioned report focused on the Arab world, it found what it called a knowledge gap. It said if Arab nations are to connect with the rest of the world, they must improve their education, research development, ease restrictions on the media, and it must be done during the constraints of a war on terror, a war that has fueled radicalism and anger in the Arab world, and a war that has seen the curbing of political rights in Arab nations. Now, under these conditions, can the knowledge gap be bridged? Well, joining us with their views from Washington is Amy Hawthorne. Now, she is the editor of the Carnegie Endowment's Arab Reform Bulletin. From London, we're joined by Baria Alamuddin, foreign editor of Al Hayat, and also joining us on the line from Kuwait City is Shafiq Gabra, the president of the American University of Kuwait. But before we get to all of our guests, first, here's a report by CNN's Rula Ramin on some of the constraints that are preventing that knowledge gap from being closed.
Dar al-Shuruk printing house is considered among the best in the Arab world. Thousands of books and magazines are printed here. But the owner says publishing quality is a struggle against the odds. Brahim Ma'alem is also the head of the Arab Publishers Union. He shows us one of his best, a children's book illustrating the human body. But, he says, the book was banned in some Arab countries. Censors declared it inappropriate because certain body parts were not covered.
Under the sword of censorship, when a publisher is never sure whether a book will be sold or banned, the safest thing is to make the books bland. Books about cooking, how to enjoy life, how to love, and how to use the computer.
Such limitations are just one impediment to human development in Arab countries cited in a new UN report. Other examples in the report: fewer than 2% of Arab citizens have access to the internet. Scientific research is stagnant. The quality of education is on the decline. Muallim sees that even in textbooks.
Many governments act as the publishers. Their sons are the authors. Their cousins are the artists who draw the pictures. The result? Bad quality textbooks that only glorify the ruler. And our children grow up hating books and education altogether.
The UNDP report's authors were equally scathing in their assessment.
Knowledge is on the retreat in Arab countries, and that something urgent should be done about it.
The authors of the report were determined to focus their recommendations on what the Arab people themselves can do. However, one of their most disturbing findings, says one author, was, quote, "There's a lot that we can do, and we are doing nothing."
Since 9/11, the UNDP report says an important escape valve has been lost. Educational opportunities for Arabs in the West have been limited because of security concerns. That may complicate efforts to bring about reform.
There has to be a comprehensive, deep change in the society for education to change. But with such poor education, the new generation is not equipped to bring that change. It's like the chicken and the egg.
But Hisham Qasim says some change is already happening. A human rights activist, he disagrees with a portion of the UNDP report that suggests the war on Iraq has undermined the process of democratic reform in the rest of the Arab world.
The margin has really widened over the last year.
We spoke to him a day before a group of political parties was scheduled to hold a large rally in a public square to demand political reform and restrictions on the president's authority.
I don't think a year ago we would have imagined that that was possible.
In fact, it wasn't. The government did allow a few of the demonstrators to gather, but only here, off the street, in a private room. The Egyptian government unwittingly providing an illustration for one of the main points of the UNDP report, that political dissent is only barely tolerated in the Arab world, and that blocks real change. Rula Amin, CNN, Cairo.
All right, well, let's get right to it. And Shafiq Gabra, who joins us on the phone from Kuwait City, one of the points raised in the report deals with what is radicalizing Arabs, what's causing and fueling the anger. What's your response?
Well, there are many issues that cause anger. Definitely the lack of freedom and the lack of democracy is a very important issue. And the lack of clear set of rules for people, respect for law, implementation of a law that is fair for much of society, the whole process, bureaucracies, over-dominant governments, expression and education, information and interaction, freedom, the utilization of religion into politics at an extreme level, undermining also all kinds of freedoms and middle classes, issues of economic integrity of the individual as well. All of that put with it the Arab-Israeli conflict and all the issues with it. Add to it the entire set of political conflicts in the region and within the region. You get a big time bomb.
Okay, Baria Alamuddin in London, plenty of issues being thrown up there, but do you think it's possible to say that it's one thing more than the other? For example, is it the autocratic regimes in some of the Arab nations which are to blame, or is it being fueled more and more by the US war on terror? How do you come down on this?
Well, I think there is no denial that the regimes, the way they are in the region is not a plus for us all. Although I must admit, we are in a sort of a vicious circle. This report is indeed very, very sad news for us all. And I think what we need to do in the area is wage a war on ignorance. What we need in the area is empowerment of women, of people. What we need in the area above all, I believe, is peace. People in the area don't have the luxury of thinking about education or about aspiration